Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third day of week 6 of the Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 2, where we give runners partners the spoiler log, have those partners tell the runners where to go, and the runners just execute that, usually with low equipment as best they can. I am Philian, and I am joined by my friend Philian today because there's no one else. I am doing great. I am really looking forward to just seeing these two runners barely pick up anything at all and hopefully go exactly where they need to and nowhere else. So come along with me for this ride. On the left, Gloin, piloted by Big Dunka. On the right, Che4mo, piloted by Cascade Hope. And it looks like we are just about to get started here. For those that haven't seen this before, the co-pilots sitting in voice calls with the actual runners of this race get the spoiler for the seed the moment the race starts, not a second before. So there is a lot of frantic searching right at the start as these runners begin the race, starting from different locations, and Gloin gets the castle small key in the first chest. That's a little odd to find at the start, but it does put all of the front of escape right in logic, and we see both runners making their way to the village in opposite directions right now. Gloin taking the south route is going to have the option of farming for some 50-50 bomb drops and gets them both on the first try. That's a very nice start. Meanwhile, Che4mo dropping down into the forest to see what's available. And there is a sword right off the bat. This is going to be nicer than a lot of the seeds we've seen so far this week. Well, I say that now, but at the very least I can say that confidently for the opening spheres. We see Gloin already skipping race game and the back of the tavern, suggesting nothing good is going to be there. But Che4mo picking up 20 more rupees makes me wonder about Bottle Vendor. And Gloin in the well gets both a glove and the red cane. Very nice start, and is able to skip the back of the well. That'll work out nicely for Che4mo, who's coming in here with no bombs. Interestingly, Gloin skipping Blind's Hut entirely while Che4mo dives in. This makes me curious. What's in here? What's Che4mo gonna get that Gloin wasn't interested in? A piece of heart. 20 more rupees. Another piece of heart, and not opening that last chest. So I guess, dive down there, get a few safeties, and Che4mo wants that last chest. Oh, it's a full heart container. That is a great thing to have at the start of these runs. Typically, we've been seeing runners max out around the 7-8 heart range, so getting one of those right off the start going to be useful. But Gloin is already headed to the castle. Perhaps going to check the uncle spot here, do some tree pulls, and might just be using that castle tower key we got in Link's house. Or castle escape key, I should say. Hook shot on Uncle, and that seems to be all we need from the castle at the moment. But that hook shot's great. It gives us the potential of the stun prize. It makes clearing Mini Moldorm Cave easy, and it potentially gives us access to East Death Mountain if the runners are prepared to do dark rooms and just overlook the lamp. So lots on the table already. Interestingly, Che4mo still in the village, has bought bombs and is now hunting down to the race game looking for something. In the back of Escape, Titan's Mitts, the first small key to Dark Palace, and a refill on bombs. That is a good, strong back of Escape. And Gloin's team is now just a moon pearl away from Dark World. Che4mo doing race game to get another heart container. This is going to put him at 5 compared to Gloin's still 3. Now, the South Shore area, not too hairy, and with a sword, generally, the start of the game is going to stay safe, but it is going to give Che4mo, a bit more confidence as we start to enter the Dark World. Che4mo now doing the back of Escape. Gonna get that Mitts and Pod key as well. And there's the Moon Pearl at the flooded spot of the dam. So we now have Dark World access. But Gloin is not done with South Dark World. Or South Light World. And yes, if you have not seen this mode before, this is the 6th week of the league where we really mix things up. We really ramp up the co-op requirements. We have the runners compete with their partners. So Gloin is assisted by Big Dunka, Che4mo by Cascade Hope. Both these runners in a voice call with their partner who has the full spoiler log, every location of every item in this race. And that co-pilot is going to have to be reading through that, hitting Control F and typing as frantically and efficiently as possible to find out things like, hey, there's the Fire Rod in Mini Moldorm Cave, there's a second Palace of Darkness key, and then relay that information to their partner, along with how to route that efficiently. And it leads to a lot of interesting questions for us. For instance, you can see at the bottom of the screen, our tracker shows Palace of Darkness is a pendant today. Normally we'd think, all right, we don't have to go there, but with 2 Palace of Darkness keys already picked up by Gloin, I'm starting to wonder if maybe the back of the dungeon is holding something useful. Then again, could be possible. Big Dunk is reading that spoiler log and saying, the pod keys are there, pick them up just in case. I can't figure out the mess of logic that is pod right now. It's a lot to process for the pilots, particularly in these opening 10-15 minutes when there's so much they have to learn. So Hazrul's Closet has a Hera compass, 10 bombs, and perhaps most importantly, the big key for Hera, which suggests to me that we might have something in the big chest of Hera, since a lot of the runners at this point will be comfortable just Hera-podding and bypassing that key entirely. Che4mo a bit behind picking up the Moon Pearl due to the time spent grabbing those 2 hearts, which might pay off, as it looks like Gloin is headed up the mountain. So we're going to see that dark room, which shouldn't give him any trouble. And then we'll see him probably head to East Death Mountain. And given the way he picked up the Hera big key before he went here, I'm wondering if we'll see a hammer or a mirror in East Death Mountain that they can then use to get to Tower of Hera. Now, for those of you who like to look at the speedrun.com leaderboards for this game, you can get a gauge of how good someone's execution is, but that's not necessarily a good indicator of who's better at Randomizer, because that involves a lot of guesswork and routing and trying to determine what the seed wants you to do, in addition to the execution factor. But this is that 1 week where we look at the leaderboards, the general finish times, and we say, okay, that has an influence on how fast these runners might beat the race. And with that, Che4mo's a runner in the 130s. Gloin, I don't recall his time, but I know he's quite accomplished at this game in general, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some lower percent strats come out, see the runners kind of avoid the safeties if they can, and just get the bare minimum that they need to beat the seed efficiently. Gloin unfortunately taking that death on the mountain. It's going to lose a few seconds to redoing this, but look at this divergence with Che4mo. Headed into Skull Woods, which we can beat for the green pendant right now if we want. Huh. Shoutouts, by the way, to Irritable Penguin, our tracker, who downloaded that spoiler log for tracking purposes and has been able to fill us in on what the crystals and pendants are, which is particularly important here because the runners are not going to be doing map checks for us. Paradox Cave has the big key of Eastern Palace, so just a bow required now to finish that dungeon. And also in Paradox Cave, we're seeing a mirror, a fairy, and a bottle, which is great to have as a safety. A piece of heart and 50 rupees. So that mirror is going to get us through to Tower of Hera, but Che4mo in the back of Skull Woods used that fire rod to pick up the flute. That is potentially a huge time boost. I wouldn't be surprised if Gloin took that flute as soon as he got to Dark World, just because of the amount of time you can save with that one item. Looks like Che4mo's headed back through Skull Woods either for another item or to do something in the village area before heading up the mountain. But we see one of the big reasons Gloin is headed to the mountain already. Those are boots on top of Spectacle Rock, requiring the mirror from Eastside Death Mountain. Flute's great, so are boots. Both runners getting huge movement upgrades right this quickly in the seed. Man, I wish all my practices were this good. And there we see a third Palace of Darkness key on Che4mo's side. The Skullwoods prison, followed by a save and quit out. As Gloin begins climbing Tower of Hera, opting not to do the Hera pot, instead climbing the normal way using the big key that he picked up, and we'll see if this is just a case of didn't want to hammer or Hera pot, or if that big chest is actually holding something. Either way, now is a great time to be clearing Tower of Hera. You loop it in with that boots check that you definitely wanted to do regardless. Although it looks like there's nothing in this dungeon we want except for that crystal on Moldorm. Alright, 6 hits required with the fighter's sword on Moldorm. No matter whether you do spins or pokes or slashes, it's always going to be 6. The trick is just to remember that the tail's going to go wherever the head was, and hit based on that. And there we go. Che4mo, interestingly, not headed up to Death Mountain yet, forgoing those boots in favor of diving Mire Shed. For a hammer and a map to Thieves, which we don't need. But that hammer is going to be nice. It means he can cut straight across the mountain once he gets the mirror, if he'd like. Also gives immediate Dark World access, although at this point, I'm Really hoping Che4mo gets up the mountain, because every second Gloin has those boots, he's going to be gaining time. Hammer is certainly worthwhile to pick up before the Moldorm fight. It's going to turn that from 6 hits into just 3 on Moldorm's tail. That's assuming Che4mo does the Hera pot trick. If not, we might see Che4mo head into Hera at the very end of the seed, right before GT. But over on Gloin's side, we are seeing him head into Skullwoods, so I expect we'll see that same flute grab. And maybe some muscle memory kicking in there for Gloin, as he almost went to the big key chest and then bailed out of that. One interesting thing to note is that Che4mo is being a lot more particular, specific, precise with his chest openings. We saw him, only grab 3 of the top 5 chests in Paradox Cave, compared to Gloin opening everything. It does mean that he doesn't get, say, that fairy in a bottle, which could be really useful, even if it's not required for progression on Sick Kid. And there, of course, Gloin, grabbing the flute, is now able to mirror out of the dungeon and head straight back into the light world for that activation if he wants. Or potentially walk back through Swamp Palace, or Skullwoods. And here's Che4mo remembering, hang on, before I do Hera, I should grab these boots. Oh, Gloin going in an interesting direction here. Taking those boots to get across North Dark World quickly and using the mirror to get onto Graveyard Ledge at this point. This is something Che4mo was not able to do at the time. And we'll have to see what he picks up here. Interesting play. That's a long ways to go just for a piece of heart. For a full heart container, I could see it. But that is, a bit of a time sink on Gloin's side. Especially just to head all the way back. Interesting. Also, worth pointing out that in Tower of Hera, Che4mo picked up the GT small key from the back of the dungeon. Since it was right there, it is kind of nice to grab that and potentially save yourself another slower key pickup inside Ganon's tower. There's the Moldorm fight down, so both runners with 1 crystal now, but Gloin grabbing the flippers from the C-shaped house. We'll see Che4mo get those soon enough, obviously, but that could be a routing advantage for him. With a Master Sword in the chest game. Yeah, compared to a lot of the seeds I've seen this week, both in practice and restreamed, these swords are coming out nicely for the runners. Although Che4mo says, no. I don't want that Master Sword. I don't want that bow from Brewery that Gloin picked up. I'm going to head straight to Palace of Darkness. And we see a mirror here. I think this may be a play over to Brewery now. He is going to need that bow, or want that bow with the eastern big he's got, just to loop in, doing all of those dungeons together. Ooh, Tempered Sword in Cave 45. And is Che4mo headed back into Skull Woods here? Butter sword on Stumpy, alright. Alright, just take all the best swords right now. Easy. Interesting. Che4mo and Cascade Hope maybe having a little confusion as they recheck a chest that had a pod small key. Che4mo grabs the Skullwoods big key from next door inside the dungeon and opens the big chest there for the Swamp Palace small key. Okay. I see why you'd make the trip back for this. Down in Hype Cave, Gloin picks up a fourth, no, his third Ketapod, the fourth we've seen overall. Che4mo getting dinged by an angry rock underneath the bushes outside a C-shaped house, but he will get his flippers here, and I assume also Master Sword and bow by the time he leaves this village. Neither runner dipping into Thieves Town makes me think we won't see anything in the front of that. Perhaps just a go mode Thieves once the big key shows up. And about 20 minutes into this run, things are fairly close. Gloin ahead a couple of swords, but still missing that hammer, just about to pick it up from Mireshed right now. Che4mo going to be picking up those swords in a second here, and both runners with one crystal having similar amounts of ground covered. Che4mo with a 2-heart advantage, which could come into play if these runners have to head into somewhere hairy, but for just Palace of Darkness, things should be fine. There's an ice rod on Desert Ledge, and it is worth noting that we saw Gloin pick up the blue mail from the generous guy in Hype Cave. So that'll at least provide some safety for the rest of this run. Che4mo gets himself to Butter Sword and is headed to Hype Cave, probably going to pick up the red mail as well here. Although, you know, we've got all the tools for Swamp Palace. We're here. We're in the Dark World. Why not just beat it? As Gloin goes over to Checkerboard Cave, gets the red mail there. That'll be nice. Che4mo is, looks like, putting off Hype Cave for the moment. Going to be doing Swamp first, which is not totally free with 5 hearts green mail. Swamp, one of those dungeons that slowly eats away at your health if you're not careful, so Che4mo's going to have to be very deliberate with his movements. Which will include, hopefully, not mirroring out more than that first time in the first room. We see a little muscle memory coming into play as he opens that first chest. And, you know, we have the potential here for a go mode Swamp. Che4mo may be able to skip the left side if it comes to that. Gloin, meanwhile, doing something else entirely, headed up to Aga Tower, which we can walk into and get one chest from. Ah, silver arrows. Probably worth the time spent just to go get there. They'll save a fair amount of time just in the Ganon fight, but also on bosses like the Armos Knights, Vitreous, even on some Red Mimics or Igors. We're going to see boosts there. And Gloin is going to take that silver arrows from the castle tower and head over to Palace of Darkness / Eastern Palace. Che4mo does a diver down, picks up a piece of heart in the flooded chest. A lot of runners won't pick up piece of hearts if they have to go out of their way at all, but when it is literally in the room, they're still often worth picking up, since if you pick up 4 stray pieces or pieces forced on you by bosses, you will end up getting that full heart container from them at some point. And before he heads into Palace of Darkness, Gloin is just going to take on Eastern Palace. With the big key already, with no small keys for the dungeon in chests, and with the bow and silver arrows, this is going to be a quick dungeon. Boots are going to let us take some of these rooms very quickly, getting Gloin his first additional heart 25 minutes into the race. And it looks like Che4mo was just in Swamp Palace for the Argus fight and the Thieves' Town Big Key. So that little bit of routing, merging everything in together in South Dark World, is going to come in handy. Swamp Palace, kind of obnoxious to get open, just because of the amount of Dark World entrance and exit you have to do. But that'll be 2 crystals for Team Right Side, also known as Skullwood's Big Skip. Hey, hang on. If they're Team Skullwood's Big Skip, why did they open that chest before their opponents? Alright, Gloin doing the usual torch strat in Eastern Palace to make sure nothing goes wrong in the dark room. And chat's pointing out correctly that Che4mo skipped Hype Cave, which probably didn't need the Palace of Darkness key for, since he's already got 3, but he is skipping out on that blue mail upgrade. You know, a little odd to be missing that, since it's so early and quick to grab. We'll see if he grabs from Checkerboard Cave. Gloin misses 1 arrow in the Armos fight, but it's not a huge deal. Finishes that fight off with a 7th arrow, and gets that 2nd crystal for Team Broken Triforce. So things are coming together fairly quickly for both teams here, as Che4mo's doing the right side of Palace of Darkness. Well, there's a Quake medallion, which we know we'll need to get into Misery Mire. Gloin seems to be on the path for that as well. And is that truly all we need from Palace of Darkness? Che4mo is leaving the dungeon. Interesting to leave after just that. I wonder if maybe we need the big key before we can really finish that dungeon off for items. It is, of course, a pendant, so the Helmasaur fight not required. As the runners trade places here, Che4mo skipping the heart from the Cannonball room And gloin also getting the quake and mirroring, or rather, save and quitting out of the dungeon. Over in the compass room of Eastern, both runners did pick up that first Turtle Rock small key. We are looking at 3 small keys required to finish the game in Turtle Rock, assuming you steal one from the Pokey. 4, though, required if somehow that lava chest, the vanilla big key chest, is holding something. One of the great things about playing this with the spoiler log is you don't have to agonize over that chest. You know as soon as you start looking at it whether or not you actually have to maintain your keys for this. And we do see the runners kind of swap sides back as Che4mo's finishing up Eastern Palace. Gloin heads into Swamp. Gonna get that crystal and the Thieves' Town big key. Alright, Che4mo's Armos fight coming up. Grabbing some arrows to stock up before, because this fight is going to be a little bit longer on his side and take about 3 times as many arrows. Not having grabbed the silvers from Mega Tower, he's going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. Just hitting those guys, but he does get the quick kill and takes out that bottom wall, which is causing us no end of pain. You stick it to the wall. You get him. Oh no. Gloin, unfortunately, went to Swamp Palace without that small key, which I believe was in Skull Woods. Had to bail on the dungeon. That is a time loss that is gonna hurt. And instead of going straight to pick that up, headed into Ice Palace. No big keys, we can't get the big chest, but if you know your bomb jumps, or more likely you want to just do an icebreaker with the Cane of Samaria, you don't need the big key. But Gloin doesn't want to be here either. Everything okay on the left side there? This is a little concerning to see, just not quite knowing what's going on the left side. This kind of save and quit, save and quit, save and quit from a runner usually indicates that the pilot is looking at the spoiler log and either realizing a dependency that they didn't know was there, or just generally seeing a more efficient route. But with the big key of Ice Palace and Bonk Rocks, I'm thinking Gloin's pilot, Big Dunka, might just have said, hang on, we want something in that chest. Maybe it's a Turtle Rock Small, maybe it's the Ether Medallion or something. Either way, he's made the call of, we're going to want that item. Che4mo, meanwhile, doesn't seem concerned with picking up items at all at this point, and is just doing Thieves' Town pretty much in go mode. Unless we see him grab the chest from Blind Cell, this is just going to be a straight up clear for a crystal, but he is doing it fairly efficiently. Down to 3 hearts, headed into the basement, but first, if you know your blind script, this shouldn't be a problem, and second, if you know your hearts under pots, there is plenty of room for safety here. Alright. Gloin. Ice Palace. Round 2. Oh, no. Che4mo slashed at some Zizaks, and they just ignored that and walked straight into him. That is really unfortunate to see. Really frustrating on the runner's side. That is one of the most punishing spots in the dungeon to take a death. You'd almost rather take the death on blind, where you'd only have to walk straight back to the boss. Instead, Che4mo is going to have to basically run the whole dungeon again, just skipping the attic this time. Both teams dealing with a bit of time loss here. The nice thing about Spoiler Week, compared to other weeks of Rando, is at least they can watch their opponents this week, or more likely their partners are watching the opponents or the restream. And that does mean that, unlike a normal Rando race where you're going blind, you lose time, you don't know where your opponent is, and if you've just cost yourself the race, here they're going to be able to see that and kind of mentally accommodate for that on the fly. Gloin trying to move 1 pixel left from the wall, and then diagonally down right immediately after to do the icebreaker. Having a little trouble getting the setup here. Che4mo getting those hearts under the pots that we talked about earlier. And gloin is through the wall, has broken ice, and gets 50 rupees from the big key chest. Not necessarily required, potentially being bought just for the sake of potions, which are quick to grab now that we've got the flute. As Che4mo enters the second phase of the scripted blind fight, gloin is making his way through the right side. Real heads-up play in the room above this to make sure he grabbed the small key so he could get out this door. And it looks like he might be headed straight to the boss from here. Good job clipping through that rail into the staircase, though the heart might cost him a bit here. He's also going to have to figure out something to do with his decreased magic meter. Ether Medallion is in the big chest, which is why we saw him go to Bonk Rocks for that big key. That is great to have, but I'm looking at gloin's magic counter, or magic meter, and I'm concerned. This is not enough to beat the boss with. Che4mo takes a minute to go over to the desert ledge and pick up the ice rod and head straight back into his portal, so we might be seeing the play here into Checkerboard Cave. Turtle Rock Big Key in the Iced Tea Room is definitely required for this seed, so good on Big Dunka for making sure gloin goes there. And Che4mo headed into Misery Mire, though we haven't seen the big key yet. If it's in here, you'll be able to beat the dungeon. Otherwise, we might be looking at a double dip. And, of course, 3 magic pots on the right side of the drop-down in Ice Palace is going to give gloin the refill he needs. Hit that crystal switch. Hit it. But this, with the other magic drops right before the boss, is going to be enough magic now. Gloin can take 1 hit from the gold stair puff safely. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything worse than that. Che4mo finds the book in the spike chest of Misery Mire. There's a second Turtle Rock Small in Misery Mire for Che4mo. Looks like the reason he came into this dungeon. As gloin lets Cold Stare get away, but you know what? With Butter Sword, it doesn't matter. You have so few hits you need to get. 20 bucks for beating the boss, but more importantly, there's a third crystal. And Che4mo, you don't have the big key. Don't go into Ice Palace. I see him switching to the flute. He may be making the same realization. Oh, oh. All right, looks like Che4mo's going to get that big key as well. Or go to the library and grab a Turtle Rock small key. Gloin taking the close-by waterfall cave at this point to just grab a sneaky little pizza heart, get up to 5 hearts. That's good awareness from his pilot to know, hey, you've got a heart container right nearby. It's as quick as you're going to get one. Let's just take the time and grab it right now. Looks like he might be headed to Dark Death Mountain and or Turtle Rock. Turtle Rock, not quite beatable at the moment. On Gloin's side, he's only got the 2 keys. Che4mo picks up the Ice Palace big key and is going to head back to that dungeon, which will give him a number of goodies. Che4mo taking a second to kill a couple of little slimes, perhaps also noticing his magic meter and saying, hang on, I need a bit more in here. As Gloin takes a nice tactical red potion and a bottle that'll come in handy for any safeties he needs later. Turtle Rock, as we know, is the Ether Medallion, so Gloin's going to pick that up right now. And Che4mo indeed farming those berries, probably looking for the magic drops, but at least gets a health refill out of it. He is going to have to be careful in this dungeon. Since he neglected to pick up either of the mails, he's running through this with 6 hearts green mail, which is fine if you never get hit. But if the game starts to go sideways for you, it doesn't work out. Gloin is able to skip the first chests in Turtle Rock, knows that there's nothing there, still gets, I don't want to say bullied, but annoyed by the chain chomps a bit, and is making his way further through the dungeon, presumably going to steal a key here. Che4mo on his side picked up a full magic jar from the berries and is going to be very happy to have that. Still has to grab the Ether Medallion here in the big chest, as well as the Turtle Rock big key on the right side of this dungeon. Ooh, Gloin getting bunny beamed and letting that Hoku Boku or Pokey get a couple extra laps in. Nice dodge of the anti-fairies there. He has stolen the key, but is not going to be able to finish this dungeon unless we see a key sitting on Laser Bridge. Or Crystal Roller, or Big Chest, or Mimic Cave. There's a lot of spots, potentially, but if that key doesn't show up, Gloin's looking at a potentially costly double dip here. As we come up on 3/4 of an hour into the race, I want to welcome everyone coming in from Speed Gaming 5. We are midway through a co-op spoiler key sanity race. Where the runners don't have their full information, but their partners who they're in a voice call with do know what's up, know where every item is, and just have to guide them through. Gloin gets the... oh, I hate this. The Meyer big key from the Turtle Rock big chest. Which means that the game either wanted you to double dip Meyer or double dip Turtle Rock. The runner's taking opposite choices on that fork. But presumably, the Che4mo will be able to pick that up on his way to Turtle Rock soon, meaning the only key we have yet to see for these runners, the only important big key, is that Ganon's Tower one. Che4mo didn't have a lot of health for that fight, or a lot of safety with only green mail, but it doesn't seem to matter. He's beaten Cold Stare, and that brings him to a whopping 5 crystals already. Gloin back in Skullwoods, gonna get the Skullwoods big key, which he has to use right next door to bomb jump here and grab the Swamp small key. Unfortunately, he won't be able to finish Thieves Town, as that is in this neighborhood, but requires the Thieves Town big key. Thieves Town big key, of course, being on Argus, the boss of Swamp Palace, so it's a lot of unfortunate routing to get back to all that. Gloin's headed back to the back of Skull Woods again. We saw both runners in here briefly earlier to grab their flute from the bridge chest, and then left the dungeon. So what brings them back here now? Is there something on Mothula? Something on Sahasrahla or Ped? Che4mo opens up Turtle Rock and decides not even to bother. Not even bothering with that red potion in Turtle Rock. At this point, just kind of committing to 6 hearts green mail for a lot of this, which again, fine if you never get hit. Gloin kills Mothula for the lamp. Which is, sorry, I'm just a bit stunned, not because of the decision, but because of kind of the decision the game forces on you there. Do you want to go out of your way, spend the time fighting that boss, but make your dark rooms trivial? Or do you want to try doing the Dark Mire basement without a light source or armor for afterwards, or many hearts? And, you know, if Che4mo sticks on this route he's been doing, don't bother with safeties ever, how's he going to handle that? That's one of the harder dark rooms, just in terms of the amount of health you inevitably bleed from everything on the ground. Che4mo's also, of course, going to have to do the Turtle Rock Samaria Maze in the dark, though that one's a little more forgiving. You don't take much more damage than you would normally from the fire bars, if any at all. And, the moving platform gives you just enough time to control where you're going that if you kind of pre-press your inputs, you won't run into trouble with it. Che4mo gets the Meyer big key from that Turtle Rock big chest and now has every item he needs except for that Ganon's Tower big key, which at this point I'm inclined to guess is going to be actually in Ganon's Tower. Dark Maze started off okay for Che4mo, but looks like he fell off the platform when he got to the center. That is going to throw off some of his timing and just cost some hearts that he doesn't necessarily have to spend. We see him here switch to the hookshot just for the iframes so that he won't bleed any more damage in this room. Nice call for safety. Gloin as well, looking at a go mode style Swamp Palace, skipping everything along the way. Unfortunately couldn't beat it on his first dip here, but is now forging ahead full speed. Che4mo having a little bit of trouble with the crystal blocks, but knows what he's doing enough to recover, and is now headed across to Trinix with 6 hearts. With Buttersword, this is usually quite a quick fight and shouldn't cause problems for him. Go for the back door, get 3 hits on each head, and if you do this quickly, you may not even see the center head move. Alternatively, you might get hit there and have a little dicey of a time. Phase 2, he just has to get 3 hits in. And there we go. Down to 1 heart, but he's through. And that'll be Crystal 6 on his side, as Gloin is just mopping up the Argus Puffs. Buttersword cuts through them in, of course. 1 hit only. And it'll be 2 spins on phase 2 like this. For that big key to Thieves Town, and crystal number 5 on that side. So a Thieves Town, I'm sorry, crystal number 4 on that side. 5 dungeons completed, but also Skullwoods being one of them. So still having to do Thieves Town and Turtle Rock to catch up to where Che4mo is. If you've been watching Che4mo, you've seen him pick up kind of nothing in terms of safeties all run. So it's interesting to see him finally take that time to dip into Hookshot Cave for that 1 red potion. But hey, if he's planning on doing Darkmire Basement, especially without silver arrows for Vitreous, he's going to want that. You do, of course, see that discrepancy in bow between the 2 runners. Gloin made the call early on to just run to Aga Tower, grab those silvers, or rather the second bow, from the first chest, which takes very little time inside the dungeon, but a bit of time in the overworld to get there. Che4mo, I expect, is at this point just putting them off until right before Ganon, when he may make the call to grab them. It's also possible he just bypasses them entirely and goes for silverless strats. which it's hard to say which would be faster, though. I think silvers would still get the edge. And on the second trip to Meyer, having picked up the only important items already, Che4mo is just going to head straight to the back. In the basement, he's going to have to remember not to hit the first crystal switch, or that'll set him back. His gloin's headed through the attic of Thieves' Town. Only on 5 hearts, but having red mail, he should be safer from any nasty wandering horsehead enemies in the basement of this dungeon that dinged Che4mo. And it looks like Che4mo is through the first room of the Meyer basement. Second one's very simple, just walk out the door on the left. And the third one is where a lot of runners start bleeding health, as we see Che4mo getting bopped back and forth by that switchblade a couple times. Does not switch to fire rod, not going for the spooky action glitch. Instead, bombs himself by accident, trying to get the north door open. And now exits the dark area through there with a heart and a half remaining, especially if he decides to red potion. He should be fine for the end of this dungeon. Gloin, meanwhile, has navigated the basement of Thieves' Town and going to turn in that maiden, or rather turn that maiden into blind. Che4mo drinks that potion, wise call, and goes for the little damage strats on the goo, then switches to bow. Gloin knows that script for blind, into phase 3 already, just needs 3 more nice safe hits. 1, 2, 3. Simultaneous boss explosions for these runners. Che4mo gets a heart container, bringing him to a total of 7. Gloin with a bomb, refill, and a 5th crystal. But look to your right, that is 7 crystals on Che4mo's side. That means we still don't have the Ganon's Tower big key. And we won't do a guessing game, but I'm stumped as to where it could be. Is it going to be just nice and easy in Ganon's Tower? Is it going to be some awful double dip we have to do? It's not at the potion shop. Che4mo's just here buying a blue, trying to buy a blue, but not having enough money. Trying to buy a red, but not have enough money. Settle on a green potion. Which is, you know, fine, but not ideal. Does look like he's headed to the tower, so we may be seeing the GT big key in that basement somewhere still. Gloin now on his first trip to Misery Mire is able to just bonk across that gap. He is going to beat this dungeon on his trip since he's got the big key from Turtle Rock. But we're also going to see him have to make a trip to the bridge for that Turtle Rock small key he needs to finish up there. There is an alternate path you can take in Key Sanity here if you're just aiming for that last chest, where you go straight to the boss and then hookshot across to this chest, saving you a few screen transitions, but it does come at the expense of a heart, which Gloin may not be totally comfortable with at this point. We also see him grab the Book of Mudora as well. So, oh, this is nice. Oh, I like this. Che4mo opens up Ganon's tower, pulls out that mirror, and it turns out the big key isn't even in the tower. It is right next door on the tablet. Fortunately, no shortage of swords for the runners to be able to grab that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is go mode. That's like when you get to mirror right before GT and beat Hera as your last dungeon, except cooler because no one watching this race saw it coming. All right, at only 8 hearts, Che4mo opting for a little bit of a safer path across the spikes in the first room. And then not having silvers is going to need 2 arrows per on the Mimic's Gloin. Unfortunately, takes that hit from the anti-fairy, but remember way back in Paradox Cave when we got that fairy in a bottle and Che4mo passed it up? It sure came in handy for Gloin right there. So if you were just joining us and you're wondering, how did Che4mo end up kind of a full dungeon of Turtle Rock ahead? It was a combination of things. Partly Che4mo chose the Force Double Dip of Mire, or I should say Che4mo and Cascade Hope chose the Force Double Dip of Mire instead of the Force Double Dip of Turtle Rock. The game kind of forced you to double dip one of those dungeons. An earlier pickup of the Swamp Palace Small Key from Skull Woods meant that Swamp was clearable early. On their side, making the whole Thieves Town area a bit more efficient later on. Add to that just kind of a consistent sense of direction from the Skullwoods Big Skip team, where they always had something to do, and a couple times where the Broken Triforce team just said, "Hang on, we need to stop and think about where we're going here." Combined with some stellar execution on Che4mo's side, as we saw him completely ignore mail and pick up a few extra hearts at the start and then ignore those afterwards. We've seen him just be able to do everything a little more quickly. Gloin down to 1 rupee after that potion buy. That is efficient use of money. Is now headed up to Turtle Rock. Going to be going for that 7th crystal. But Che4mo is way up the tower at this point. He has to be careful with his magic, just not mess anything up here, as he's running this entirely lampless. Meaning he has enough magic for fire rod shots as long as he doesn't miss anything. And looks like there's nothing Che4mo needs at the top of this tower. We know the only other safety item left is those silver arrows in Aghanim's tower. Oh, look! There is 1 heart to bring the total to 8 for him. With Moldorm 2 down. Che4mo is going to be able to head to the Geometry Wizard. Gloin, this time with enough Turtle Rock small keys, is able to keep running through this dungeon, and it's going to have an easier time in this maze having the lamp, hopefully going to avoid falling off the platform like his opponent. And there's Ega 2 down. Che4mo grabbing at that wall, trying to tear down the tower himself, but unfortunately that's not the way this game works. You'll just have to go fight Ganon instead. Oh, look at this, Che4mo. Not going for the silvers. Entering the Ganon fight with 2 hearts. Now this is a butter sword fight, which makes it fairly easy and safe. Only needs 6 hits in each of the first 2 phases, which you have plenty of time to do before the fire bats really start dancing. But we are going to be looking at a lampless, silverless fight here. Great hookshot dodge of some of these bats. Gloin takes down Trinex and is going to head over to the Ether Tablet for the big key and into the tower. As Che4mo's faced with more and more and more Ganon warps. Without silvers, we are going to be looking at 12 spins or slashes with the butter sword. And ideally getting that torch glitch from a single fire rod shot, which is fine if you practiced your timing, and challenging if you don't know what you're doing. Nice lineup there, and this should be fine now. Che4mo has 7 more shots on the fire rod, meaning that he just has to get between singles and doubles, which he is more than capable of. Gloin opens the tower, and is going to be heading over to Ether to grab that big key that we saw so oddly put in at the end of the game for these runners. Che4mo not quite getting triples on this, but consistently getting 2 hits per cycle. There's the last hit. Ganon is exploding. And in just a couple seconds, Che4mo is going to walk across that bridge. So get your GGs in chat for Che4mo, who has finished with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 6 minutes, 56 seconds. Congrats to him and Cascade Hope as well, who was reading that spoiler log, pointing everything out where they were supposed to go. They really pulled out some good and tough execution and routing for this seed. We'll see if we can get them in here to talk as Gloin keeps climbing the tower. Not far behind at all, and still putting up quite a respectable time on this seed. Not sure why we can't get them in here just yet, but Gloin still climbing the tower, giving us plenty to talk about. starts off with a fire rod shot and realizes he wants to save a bit of magic, perhaps, switches over to silver arrows, which, with 3 more hits, takes out Lanmo very quickly. And we are joined here by Che4mo, who finished in about an hour, 7 minutes. Congratulations on that run.
Oh, thank you very much.
First question for you.
Shoot.
Why do you hate changing your clothes so much?
Okay, there was one in Checkerboard Cave. At that point, didn't seem worth it. I don't know, to me. But I don't know where the other one was. I don't think Cascade told me.
Hype Cave.
Hype?
Hype Cave. So it was right there either before or after that Swamp Palace dip. Or play.
Cascade did not tell me to go in there. He said avoid it. Are you pulling Cascade in here too or anything?
We might need to send him an invite for this.
Not a big deal. Yeah, I was expecting a dot done like the last 10 minutes or so, especially with that death on blind. Or not on blind, but in Thieves' Town.
Hello.
You were expecting a dot done, so you guys weren't watching the stream? You didn't have an eye on your opponents?
I can't even keep track on the one game I'm playing.
I don't peek every so often. Like I saw they were clearing Skull Woods at one point.
Yeah, they went in for the lamp.
Ah, okay.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, you know, we saw you take that death in Thieves' Town, and other than that, it felt like your execution was fairly solid. I mean, running the whole game on 8 hearts green mail is no easy feat.
That's...
Yeah, there's a few times I actually told him he should probably pick up the armor, and he's like, ah.
Well, you said Checkerboard Cave. I don't think you said Hype Cave ever.
I said one of the times I said immediately after Swamp Palace you should go to Hype Cave to get an armor.
Oh, okay. I heard part of that and didn't.
And
that wasn't anything important.
Silver's not interested in those?
I was trying to debate. We knew about them at the start, and I was trying to debate if it's worth it when we remembered. I think maybe before Meyer it might have been, and then I was already like in my area, and I figured it's like screw it. I don't care.
Yeah, like we were thinking about maybe mirroring just before Ganon and grabbing them, but it seemed faster to just silverless than it would be to grab them from the first chest.
Yeah, it's got to be like you save 30 seconds, so that it's got to take more than that to go from Link's house in just a bunch of transitions. I don't know.
Well, I was thinking mirroring from the top of Pyramid, but yeah.
I don't know. This the best part about this mode is the low percent stuff. Who wants who wants mail and silver arrows? I was mad we got gold sword. But you couldn't skip gold sword when they're right.
Yeah, not when 2 swords are right next to each other when we already had master.
And I was happy on cold stare to have gold. Because that fight can go so wrong.
Yeah, that's the big fight where you really can save time there.
Yeah. Also really glad that Che4mo did not end up getting hit by one of Ganon's random stupid bats.
Yeah, there were some clinch moments in that final fight.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone plays with not vanilla fire bats. It's impossible. Yeah.
Gloin just finished.
No, if we look at the restream, he's still in phase 3. I don't know what you're... I don't know. No, going running through into phase 4 of Ganon now. He's going to have a much quicker time of this.
Oh yeah, he's got the silvers.
Doesn't need to worry about torch glitch. Ooh, misses some torches. But is able to get Ganon in the middle of the room. 1 more hit required, and that'll do it on his end. as gloin's going to cross that bridge and finish with an official time of 1 hour, 13 minutes, 45 seconds. So about a 7-minute difference between these two runners. I have to say, all four of you kept me guessing early on in the race about who was actually in any kind of lead. After those initial checks, you just went in different directions. Some of you went to the mountain, or one of you went to the mountain. I think you guys went to Skull Woods.
Yeah.
For the flute, whereas Gloin was focused on the Heraclear and the boots right away.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense too.
Felt like I was took the Skullwoods portal about a dozen times. Which I'm sure is not what you want.
And we've got Gloin and Big Dunka in here as well. GG's, guys.
Jeez.
GG's.
Yeah, GG, guys. Yeah. So apparently we suck at spoiler.
I wouldn't go that far when you're up against this duo.
Yeah, I read the spoiler log really poorly and missed a couple of things, and that was a really big deal, and that's totally on my side. Gloin played just fine.
Not to drive it home too hard, but I think we're curious to know what you would consider the things you missed.
The two big pieces was the swamp small, obviously in Skullwoods, going in there early and then not picking up the swamp small. I missed it because of the I don't remember.
Because the flute was so attractive in that dungeon.
And that might have been that.
Lose track of everything else.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I missed on that. The other big issue was we miscounted the keys for T-Rock originally, and when we were already kind of pot committed to T-Rock, so we pick up the Meyer small, so we ended up double dipping T-Rock instead of double dipping Meyer, because we had to do one or the other, and because we had to get that key, and the fourth small was powder lock, so we'd already abandoned the powder.
Oh, jeez, yeah, that's not the one you want to go pick up.
Yeah, so other than that, there was a little bit of, we had a few bits of confusion in there, but beyond that, it wasn't horribly bad. Yeah, it was just poor piloting on my side.
For those wondering at home, powder was sitting in the big key chest of Eastern Palace, so
yeah, it's like another minute just to get that.
Yeah,
So
even with boots, that's a ways to go.
Could you have fake powder, or was there something else in Meyer you had to do?
I have no idea where the mushroom was.
Well, we turned it in this one, didn't we? Was
No,
that the
that
last
was-
seed we played?
No.
Mushroom was Ganon's Tower big key chest.
Okay. I'm confusing. We played one right before this, too.
Yeah.
If any of you were going for the mushroom in this seed, I have some serious questions about your play.
I think grabbing powder would have been faster
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
because I did TR twice, and that's 2 trips up. An extra trip I didn't have to do.
That's pretty cost intensive to go get powder and then do magic bath, though. Might be a
Either
wash.
direction, you really is. It would need a timer to see which one would be more costly.
I think we
Yeah.
also had to go back for the Swamp Small and Skullwoods because
Yeah,
we were like,
we
don't have
definitely
the big
did.
key, and then I was like, oh, it's in
Yeah.
Skullwoods.
Yeah.
Both teams skipped that on their first trip to the dungeon. The big difference was that Skullwood's big skip team again. Sorry you didn't get to follow through on your name today, guys.
Yeah, we were talking about how we might just have to just dot forfeit when we see something in that chest, but it's like no, we should give a legitimate race.
But yeah, we saw you guys grab that before heading to Swamp Palace, whereas Gloin actually got into Swamp Palace and then did that double take of oh no, I don't have the key,
Yeah,
which
that's rough.
at that point does start turning into a bigger time loss.
Did the same thing in ice too.
Oh yeah.
Didn't have what I needed for ice.
Yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
We got outside it and then realized I didn't actually go in. We also
Yeah.
didn't have the key.
I want to thank you all for that. Actually, it really, really makes the dramatic foreshadowing good when you try to enter the dungeon, you leave, you get the big key, and then everyone watching knows, hang on, there's going to be something good there. We wouldn't have known otherwise. We wouldn't have held our breath. But yeah, this is I think the first race between your two teams this week. Is that right?
That's
Yeah, we're
right.
planning it tomorrow at the same time.
Okay, and who's running that one?
We're just flipping roles. So I'm running Gloin's piloting.
And for us, Fleck is playing, who's not in this race, and I'm going to be piloting for him.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a shift in the way you think about this.
It sure will be. Yeah, it's going to be different. I've been practicing both, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, whenever we're available, we'll occasionally switch it up. Sometimes I'll play while Che4mo pilots me. Otherwise, Che4mo will pilot Fleck. Or
Fleck just plays Rust most of the time, so he's well practiced for this.
yeah.
Ah, yes. Rust transfers so many skills to this game. Well, any other final thoughts on this run, or in general this mode, which I think a lot of people have been saying is not like anything they've played before?
Yeah, this mode is super fun. I think I really enjoy it. I like the
Yeah.
low percent stuff. It's really like team focused, and you gotta like communicate a lot. I don't know. It's a blast. The first half hour is like a chaotic mess. I think it's super fun.
Yeah, and I quite enjoy piloting because I've known for a while that I'm not the fastest when it comes to like, especially when it's just on our team. Like I'm improving. Don't get me wrong, but I know I make some bad plays. But spoiler log, I've actually gotten used to routing people in, so I quite enjoy it.
Dunkog, Gloin? Yeah. That's an acceptable opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't practiced this, hardly at all, and that's kind of on us. But reading these spoiler logs and piloting is a lot harder than.
Yeah, it's certainly not a free ride. Well,
Yeah, if it's not opener ambrosia, I don't want to play it. To be
fair enough. Well, I think we've all chatted long enough for the credits to run and to get all the way to those collection rates. One thing I do love about this week is seeing those numbers so low, just not even coming close to the 100 mark. Nice change from those 180 key sanities I'm used to.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we'll wrap it up here. If you are looking for more races tonight in this Link to the Past Randomizer League, we're bad at team names, and Grouchy Old Men are facing off on Speed Gaming in 7 minutes or so you can get over there. If you don't want something just yet, Long Shots and Yutang Clan are on at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's in just over half an hour. And then we've got 2 races as well at 11 p.m. Eastern. You can check those all out on the league schedule, which you'll always see links to in chat. We are, of course, doing this mode for the rest of the week before we wrap things up next week with the co-op All Dungeons run, where team members are sharing information with each other. I need to give a massive shout out to Irritable Penguin today, who was tracking this solo, keeping me sane, keeping me apprised of all the information I needed to talk about what these runners were doing, where they got lost, where they were doing clever things with the ether tablet that I couldn't predict. So thanks to Penguin for keeping us abreast of all that. And hey, thanks to Speed Gaming for continuing to host these runs. I am Philian. Have a good night. Keep playing Rando, everyone.